In the still corridors of a 16th-century Spanish convent, a woman knelt in silence. Her frail body trembled, not with fear, but with a love so fierce it burned through centuries of tradition. Before her hung a crucifix wood, lifeless, ordinary. Yet in that moment, Teresa of Ávila saw the living Christ. His eyes pierced her heart. His wounds spoke directly to her soul. And as she wept on the cold stone floor, history shifted. The walls of the Carmelite convent would no longer contain her. What began as one woman's inner awakening would ignite a movement that transformed Christian spirituality forever. Teresa was no quiet saint tucked away behind convent gates. She was a reformer, a writer, and a visionary who dared to believe that prayer could move mountains, and that a woman could change the church from within. This is her story, told from her birth in medieval Spain to her final breath in Alba de Tormes. A story of grace and fire, of frailty and divine strength, of one woman's relentless pursuit of God in an age that tried to silence her. Teresa Sánchez de Cepeda d'Ávila y Ahumada was born on March 28, 1515 in the walled city of Ávila, Spain, a world of deep faith and rigid social hierarchy. Her father, Alonso Sánchez de Cepeda, was a wealthy wool merchant of noble descent. Her mother, Beatriz de Ahumada, was gentle, devout, and beloved by her children. From her mother, Teresa inherited a tenderness toward God. From her father, a love of truth and discipline. As a child, Teresa was lively and imaginative. Her favorite pastime was reading the lives of the saints. These stories stirred something in her soul, a burning desire to live and die for God. She once convinced her brother Rodrigo to run away with her to the land of the Moors so they might be martyred for Christ. Their uncle caught them at the city gate and brought them home, but the seed had already been planted. By the age of 16, her father sent her to the Augustinian convent at Ávila for schooling. There she learned discipline, modesty, and the rhythm of religious life. Yet her youthful heart was still drawn to the world, to romance, to vanity, to admiration. Teresa later admitted she loved being liked. She was charming, eloquent, and intelligent. Men noticed, and she noticed that they noticed. Still, divine grace pursued her. At 20, she shocked her family by choosing the cloistered life. On November 2, 1535, she entered the Carmelite convent of the Incarnation in Ávila. Her father protested in tears, but Teresa felt an unshakable pull. "I was not seeking my own will," she wrote, "but the will of God." Teresa's first years as a nun were not the serene paradise she imagined. The convent was comfortable, full of visitors and conversation. The nuns were kind, but discipline was relaxed. For a young woman craving holiness, it was a battlefield of distractions. Soon after taking her vows, Teresa's health collapsed. She suffered violent fevers and fainting fits. Doctors failed her. Prayers seemed unanswered. For months, she lay paralyzed, unable to move or speak, near death. Her father wept beside her bed. "I thought I was dying," she later wrote, "but the Lord gave me patience." Her near-death experience changed her perspective. She began to see the emptiness of worldly attachments and the futility of self-reliance. Yet even as she recovered, she drifted back into compromise, dividing her heart between God and social pleasures. Visitors came and went, the parlor filled with talk and laughter. Prayer became a duty rather than delight. Still, God did not give up on her. He pursued her relentlessly. Around 1554, in her late 30s, everything changed. One day she entered the oratory and saw a small statue of Christ scourged at the pillar. Suddenly, the sight of his wounds broke her heart. She fell to her knees, weeping uncontrollably. "I was filled with shame and gratitude," she recalled. "I saw that he had never ceased to love me." That moment was her conversion, the turning point of her life. She resolved to give herself wholly to God, to live a life of prayer and purity, no matter the cost. After her conversion, Teresa's spiritual life deepened rapidly. She began to experience profound prayer. Her heart burned with divine love. She wrote later of being drawn into a sweetness so deep that the soul is left in perfect peace. Visions and ecstasies began to accompany her prayer. At first she feared delusion. She confessed every experience to her spiritual directors, begging for discernment. Some priests doubted her, others accused her of hysteria. But those who truly listened, like Saint Peter of Alcantara, recognized the authenticity of her encounters. In one famous vision, she saw an angel holding a golden spear. "He appeared to pierce my heart," she said, "and the pain was so sweet that I never wished to lose it." This transverbation became one of the most iconic moments in Christian spirituality, a symbol of love consuming the human heart. Yet the ecstasies were not an end in themselves. They drove her toward action. Teresa saw how lax and worldly her convent had become. Nuns entertained guests, gossiped, and sought comfort. It was not the way of the cross, she lamented. A holy restlessness gripped her. She longed to restore the Carmelites to their original spirit of simplicity, poverty, and silence. By 1562, she acted. Against fierce opposition, Teresa founded a small house in Ávila, the convent of Saint Joseph. The sisters wore rough habits, went barefoot, and lived by strict poverty. Their life was one of prayer, work, and love. It was the beginning of the Discalced Carmelites, the reformed branch of the order. Founding St. Joseph's was only the beginning. Teresa soon faced accusations of rebellion. Some church authorities wanted the new convent closed. But Teresa stood firm, armed with obedience and faith. "I am a daughter of the Church," she declared, "and I will not move one finger against her will." Her obedience won her favor. By 1567, permission arrived to found more convents. That same year, she met a young friar named John of the Cross, whose humility and fervor matched her own. Together they would reform not only the nuns, but also the Carmelite friars. From 1567 to 1571, Teresa founded new houses in Medina del Campo, Malagon, Valladolid, Toledo, Salamanca, and Alba de Tormes. Each journey was grueling. She rode in rickety carts over rough roads, often ill, always joyful. "The Lord walks among the pots and pans," she laughed, reminding her sisters that holiness dwells in ordinary work. During these travels, she began writing her great works: The Life of Teresa of Jesus, her autobiography, and The Way of Perfection, written to guide her sisters in prayer. Her language was vivid, practical, and deeply spiritual. She taught that true prayer was not about words, but about friendship and intimate sharing between friends. Her writings circulated quickly, earning her both admiration and suspicion. Some clergy praised her insights, others feared her boldness. A woman writing theology in Spain's Inquisitionary church was daring, but Teresa knew she was obeying God, not pride. By the early 1570s, Teresa's reform had become a movement. Yet with growth came conflict. The unreformed Carmelites felt threatened. They accused her of disobedience and pride. She was summoned before ecclesiastical authorities and ordered to stop founding new houses. For a time, she obeyed, but she continued to write, pray, and advise her communities by letter. Let nothing disturb you, she told her sisters. God alone suffices. Her serenity in persecution inspired everyone around her. In 1575, her collaborator John of the Cross was imprisoned and beaten by opponents of the Reform. Teresa wept and prayed for his release. Her own health worsened, but her spirit grew stronger. Out of this dark period emerged her masterpiece, The Interior Castle. In this book, Teresa describes the soul as a luminous crystal castle with 7 mansions. God dwells in the center. The journey inward symbolizes progressive purification and transformation. First mansions, awareness of sin and need for repentance. Second mansions, growing discipline in prayer and virtue. Third mansions, stable devotion but subtle pride and self-reliance. Fourth mansions, beginning of supernatural prayer-infused recollection and peace. Fifth mansions, union of the will with God's spiritual betrothal. Sixth mansions, suffering, trials, and ecstasies that purify love. Seventh mansions, spiritual marriage, complete joyful union with God. And she teaches that 1. God dwells within the soul. The greatest discovery is that God is not distant. He lives in the innermost chamber of every baptized soul. The path of prayer is not escape from the world, but entrance into this inner presence. 2. Progress is through love, not effort. Advancement comes by growing in love, not multiplying devotions. The soul's role is to love, trust, and allow God to act. 3. Purification through trial. Before deep union, the soul must endure interior darkness, temptation, and misunderstanding. These trials destroy self-love and deepen humility. 4. Union leads to fruitfulness. The final union is not private bliss, but outward charity. The truly united soul serves others joyfully and becomes an instrument of God's mercy. The book was revolutionary. It revealed that holiness was not reserved for priests or scholars, but open to all who sought God with pure hearts. Book 4. Union. Union leads to prooffulness. The final union is not reserved for priests or scholars, but open to all who sought God with pure hearts. Later, The Interior Castle remains one of the most profound works on prayer ever written. Though aging and ill, Teresa refused to rest. Between 1579 and 1582, she founded her final convents in Palencia, Soria, and Burgos. Her body weakened, but her faith burned brighter than ever. I am not afraid, she said, for I am going to meet the one I have loved so long. In September 1582, while traveling from Burgos to Alba de Tormes, she became gravely ill. She arrived exhausted, feverish, yet peaceful. Knowing death was near, she whispered, "O my Lord, now is the time that we may meet face to face." On the night of October 4, 1582, she died gently in the arms of her sisters. Her final words were a prayer, "My Lord, it is time to move on. May your will be done." Miracles surrounded her passing. The room filled with fragrance. Her face shone as if in glory. Years later, when her tomb was opened, her body was found incorrupt. After her death, her writings were translated across Europe, inspiring countless believers. They remain cornerstones of Christian spirituality. The Discalced Carmelites she founded continue her mission today, men and women devoted to prayer, simplicity, and contemplative union with God. Her motto, "Solo Dios basta," God alone suffices, still echoes in convents and hearts around the world. Lessons from Teresa's life. 1. Prayer is friendship with God. Teresa taught that prayer is not ritual, but relationship. God listens to hearts, not eloquence. 2. Holiness requires courage. In a world that doubted women, Teresa reformed an entire order through obedience and boldness. 3. Suffering can birth revival. Her illnesses, accusations, and loneliness became the very crucible through which her sanctity shone brightest. 4. God dwells within. Teresa's vision of the interior castle reminds believers that divine presence is not distant. It resides in the soul surrendered to God. Teresa of Ávila was a woman aflame with divine love. She lived in an age of kings and inquisitors, yet her greatest kingdom was the heart. Her reform transformed not only the Carmelite order, but the entire Church's understanding of prayer. Her journey, from a spirited child to a reformer, proves that true transformation begins in the secret place of prayer. She found God not in palaces or pulpits, but within her own soul, and in doing so, she set the world ablaze. Let nothing disturb you, let nothing frighten you. All things are passing, God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Saint Teresa of Ávila